Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Fredericksburg Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum. I'm Penny McBride. I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber, and tonight I will be your moderator. The Chamber is a nonprofit organization that represents more than 900 businesses and organizations. And it's our intent tonight to provide the candidates with an opportunity to share their ideas and opinions on a variety of subjects in an unbiased and nonpartisan platform. I want to thank Hill Country University Center for making the venue tonight available for us, and also thank our production partner, FBG Live. We are being live streamed tonight, so you will have the opportunity to also watch this event on demand after the evening, and we thank both of them for being incredible partners to the Chamber. For our in-person attendees, you notice some note cards and pens on the table. You are welcome to submit a question in writing. When you have a question ready, you're welcome just to hold it up. I have a couple of our chamber ambassadors in the room that will pick those up from you, bring them around on the side aisles up to me when you're ready. So if I can ask some of my ambassadors to come up and pick up those questions, that would be great. We also have a set of questions that was generated by a committee of our members. And so I'm confident we'll probably have more questions than we're able to get to tonight in the allotted time, but I'm confident that the candidates would all be more than happy to answer additional questions either this evening or at a time in the future. Thank you, Jim. I'll begin by introducing the candidates to you. I'm introducing them in a random order from a drawing that was conducted right before the forum. They've submitted us a bio that I'll read to you, and then they'll each have 3 minutes to make an opening statement. Following that, we'll begin with the questions, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. However, they're not required to offer a response. There are no rebuttals or follow-up questions, and we ask that candidates refrain from ever interrupting one another. Candidates, I've explained the timekeeping protocol earlier this evening, and we ask that you keep your responses within the designated limits so that we can get to as many questions as possible. I'll direct you to our timer, who will give you some heads up that you have 1 minute left for the remainder of your response. And at the time expired mark, if you do not end your response, I'll have the unfortunate task of interrupting you. So hopefully we can all keep it within those timed response limits. So let's meet our candidates. And again, they were being introduced in the order that they drew when they arrived tonight. So we'll begin with Gerald Hoover. Gerald Hoover was born and raised in Odessa. He completed graduate school at West Texas A&M before earning his doctorate of musical arts from the Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. He served the church ministry for 15 years, mostly in Austin. He and his family became Fredericksburg residents in 1996. All 3 sons graduated at FHS, and 2 still live here with their families, including 3 grandchildren. Gerald founded Fredericksburg Theater Company in 1997 and served as the managing and artistic director until 2011. He served as mayor from 2006 to 2010 and from 2012 to 2014. Most recently, he served as the executive director of the Gillespie County Historical Society. Good evening, Gerald. You can go ahead and do your opening comments, please. Yes, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. Shows good community spirit. Yes, we came here in 1996, and even though we came 150 years after the first German settlers settled here, we came for the same reason, and that was we were looking for a better life. I have 3 sons, and we were looking to finish raising them in this community. We had 1 friend that lived here prior to our moving here, and those are the only people we knew. I came here hearing some things about Fredericksburg, both good and not so good, that they're clannish and they don't take well to outsiders, and it's hard to get involved and all that sort of thing. I found exactly the opposite. Those people basically said 3 things. Welcome, newcomer. We were a successful community before you came, and we will be successful when you pass on. 2, we want you to do the work to get to know us and who we are and what we stand for. And we want you to contribute to our success. And we want you to curb your urges to make changes to be more like where you just left. And we came. I was in my early 40s, so I was still building a professional career. I wasn't retired. So we invested in the community, and she told you about founding the theater company. My wife taught nursing students here for 18 years. My sons graduated here. My grandchildren are here. And this is going to be the place that they are going to call their hometown, because they've said, we're going to grow up here and stay here. So here we are, 26 years later, and I'm one of those people who wants to say, welcome, newcomer. Glad you're here. We were successful before you came. We'll be successful when you pass on. Please get to know us and find ways to contribute to our success. We're not interested in a bunch of changes that we don't need. And please curb your urges to do that, to make it like you where you just left, because we don't want to do that. I'm running for mayor to be proactive, to keep those things going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to introduce Timothy Ellis Riley. Timothy believes his candidacy for mayor is vital, uniquely requiring courage and sacrifice on behalf of Fredericksburg's future. Timothy seeks more efficient, non-toxic council meetings that offer citizens a chance to be heard, not just listened to. Timothy's commitment to proven and consistent engagement with the council, city staff, schools, and nonprofits. During his recent candidacy, he has been responsible for the approval of the new car chargers at Marktplatz, prioritized sidewalk projects, increased citizen engagement, participated in the police ride-along program, and is collaborating to identify city property that can be used for community gardens beginning in 2022. Good evening, Timothy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Timothy Ellis Riley, and I moved to Fredericksburg in 2006. So I'm still on that uphill battle being an Ausländer. However, I did manage the restaurant, the Ausländer, so maybe that gives me a little bonus. Just some basic facts, and then we can get into the juice of tonight and the real questions. But, born on July 4th, 1981. I am a homeowner. I have dedicated 16 years of my life to make Fredericksburg my home base. You know, when you look at our candidates up here, might represent a little differently. And even meeting with our candidates, we talk about credibility, and where does that come from? Yes, I have a bachelor's degree from New York University. I have a master's degree from Penn State University. I am a lifelong student and a teacher. And all of those things are required to study up and be ready and have the skills to make the tough choices. But fortunately enough, those tough choices are not made alone. And the mayor is one singular figure amongst a team, a very large team, including the city staff, to check the boxes off that you want. And I am proud to be up there and represent you, even with or without your vote, because as I've said, for me, unlike some others, it does take an extra added courage and sacrifice to step out and raise my hand on behalf of what were 500 voters last time, and of course, I hope to be more voters this time that I'm running. Even on Mr. Hoover's website, he talks about 601 votes being what is required, essentially, when you're doing the math. So be a part of the math, be a part of making, it's not about change, it's about creating that work, that world, and that space for the next generation. And you can look up here and see which generations are represented and which aren't. You can look at our city leaders and see which generations are represented and which aren't. And it's up to you to give that opportunity to those who are asking for it and also believe they deserve it. Thank you.
The final mayoral candidate for me to introduce tonight is Charlie Keeney. He is a lifelong resident of Fredericksburg. He graduated from St. Mary's High School, earned his BBA from Texas A&M University, and completed postgraduate work at UTSA. He and his wife, Jean, have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. In his free time, Charlie enjoys playing with those grandchildren, ranching, and hunting. Good evening, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you, Penny. First, I want to thank the Fredericksburg Chamber of Commerce and Penny for hosting this candidate forum. I want to thank you folks especially for being and taking time of your evening to come out and listen to all the candidates. And I certainly want to thank the University Center here for the use of their awesome space. I think it's absolutely an outstanding facility. For those of you who not met me, I am Charlie Keeney, and I have been fortunate enough to have moved to Fredericksburg on December 29th, 1950, 71 years ago. I am a lifelong resident. Went off to A&M, came back to Fredericksburg, and I've been fortunate to call Fredericksburg my home ever since. I'm a fifth generation. My son lives here with his family, so they're the sixth and the seventh generation. I will tell you, in going back to a little bit what Mr. Hoover said, I can remember when I was young, and I can speak like this because I'm one. By golly, them newcomers, we need to put them on a train and run them out of town. And I'd say, well, you know what? I don't disagree with all of that, but you know what? There's a bunch of locals that ought to load on that train at the same time. I have been married for 47 years, and I have raised 3 children as well, Kyle, Adam, and Sky, and all have graduated from Fredericksburg High School. And we are truly blessed with 7 grandchildren, and 2 of them we have here in Fredericksburg. You know, the city of Fredericksburg has not been sitting still over the years I've been on the council, and you may hear some of the questions based on this. And I'd like to let you know that these accomplishments have not been possible without the staff of nearly 160 city employees working hand in hand with city council, advisory boards, citizen participation, which I think is a critical part, along with the participation we enjoy from numerous local organizations. This includes the Gillespie County, the Chamber of Commerce, Convention of Visitors Bureau, the Economic Development Commission, the Hill Country Memorial Hospital, FISD, and many city organizations and local churches. These individuals and organizations have supported the family, which is a city, us, all of us, throughout the year, and should share in the pride of what these accomplishments have been. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about myself. I think Penny pretty well covered. I'm kind of like, I want to hear your questions and your concerns about current city government and what the future of city government should be like. Thank you for that 1 minute warning. And again, thank you very much. I'm Charlie Keeney, and I would appreciate your support and vote in this election.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce the 4 candidates who are running for City Council, starting with Tom Musselman. He is serving a 2nd term on City Council. Previously, he was a council member from 2005 to 2010 and mayor from 2010 to 2012. A Main Street businessman in the 70s and 80s, he retired in 2018 from teaching history, economics, and government at Fredericksburg High School after 26 years. Tom is a native Houstonian, but he has lived in Fredericksburg for almost 50 years. He sits on the board of the Hill Country Community Needs Council and is a member of the Gillespie County Retired Teachers Association. He has been married for 40 years to Kelly Musselman, and they have a son, Carl Thomas. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, and thank you for coming this evening. Many of you know me, and some of you have yet to meet me. All of you, I want to know, and I'm proud to call Fredericksburg my home for 50 years. It's a lot better than Houston. Public service has been the basis of my life in Fredericksburg since I decided to become a teacher in 1990. I've enjoyed serving my community as a governmental official. I enjoy it now serving on various boards around town. I feel that I have the knowledge, the experience, and the dedication to serve the residents of our community. Over the years, I've seen many changes in this community. I've seen growth in our community. I believe I have the skills to help manage and deal with the challenges that are part of every community. But I also have the ability to think and to work to help to address the health, safety, and welfare issues that are constant in our daily lives of living in Fredericksburg, Texas. Besides serving on City Council, I've served on the City of Fredericksburg Charter Review Committee. I've served on the Board of Adjustment for the City of Fredericksburg, the Comprehensive Plan Committee, the Vision 2020 Committee, and the Path to the Future Committee. I am also a graduate of the best leadership class of Leadership Gillespie County, which was 2008. Thank you, Bob. Bobby Watson, our class president's in the back. It's an honor and privilege to be a councilman representing you, and I hope that the citizens of our community will entrust me with this duty once again. I'm Tom Musselman. I ask for and I would appreciate your vote on the May 7th election. Thank you.
Our next candidate is Emily McBride. She is running to put her public policy experience to practice so our community is prepared to tackle the challenges of today and tomorrow. For over 10 years, Emily worked at the Texas Capitol, advocating for critical issues including transportation, public infrastructure, and land use. She currently serves on the Planning and Zoning Commission, is president of Leadership Gillespie County Class of 22, and is a Hill Country CASA advocate. She is the Children's Ministry Director at St. Barnabas, owns Gute Leben, and is proud to call Fredericksburg home with her husband Tim and their 2 children. Good evening, Emily.
Good evening. Thank y'all for being here. This really matters. Like Penny said, my name is Emily McBride, and I'm running for City Council to bring strong leadership to Fredericksburg City Hall. I'm a 6th-generation Texan, and I'm grateful to call Fredericksburg home for many of the same reasons that y'all likely do: the strong sense of community, the small-town charm, and the natural beauty of the Texas Hill Country. I worked for 10 years at the Capitol as a legislative aide, a legislative director, and lastly as chief of staff, and worked on a ton of critical issues that we are dealing with now. And I love this town. It's a great place to be and a great place to raise my kids. We have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. My husband, Tim, works at Cameron Brooks as a recruiter, and I'm excited to help represent families and neighborhoods as we work for safe roads, safe communities, strong infrastructure, and a sustainably thriving economy. And I hope to bring a different perspective to City Council. As a working mom with young kids, I see things a little differently, and hope to continue the legacy of public service here. Thank you.
James McDonald and his wife Beth Ann have been married for 22 years and have 3 children. Professionally, James has combined his love of sales with an entrepreneurial inclination, starting several successful companies over the last 20 years. He's worked all over the world, managing large teams of people and multi-million-dollar budgets. Personally, and equally as satisfying, James has held leadership positions in his church and the Gillespie County 4-H BB gun project. James describes himself as a person who likes to solve problems, especially problems that look to be impossible to solve, which is his motivation to run. You're welcome to start your comments, James.
So I'm going to start my comments a little bit differently. Thank you all for coming. This is an extraordinary opportunity, not only for the community to get involved in who we are as an election, and we live in the greatest country known to man. This right here, what we're doing, is a representation of that. I'm going to distill my comments down into 3 primary points. It's really what I'm running on as a campaign: trust, taxes, and tourism. When we talk about trust, if you are one of the voters that is disenchanted, disinterested, or disgusted with the current government, it's not your fault. It's not. I would ask, give us another chance. things are going to change. Give me a shot. There are a number of ways that I want to improve trust in the community, and we can go into those later on. So trust, taxes. Many of you have heard me comment on this before. The budget for the city of Fredericksburg has grown at a pace of 107% over the past decade. The federal budget has only grown at a pace of 90%. Congressmen are telling one another, we're not even as bad as Fredericksburg City Council. We have to keep that in check. The pace of growth, people moving here into Fredericksburg, does not represent the pace of the growth in tax rate. That's an important consideration to me. If you are looking for a principled conservative through and through, vote for James McDonald. Let's talk about tourism for just a second. It is the lifeblood of Fredericksburg. It is absolutely paramount that we manage it properly. It is important that we happen to it rather than letting it happen to us. Leadership is important. Please give leadership an opportunity. Change is coming. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And we'll round out our candidate slate tonight with Tony Klein. He is the Senior Executive Vice President of Arrowhead Bank and is a member of the Board of Directors for Arrowhead Bank. He has served on various community boards as chairman and as a member. He was born at Keitel Memorial Hospital in Fredericksburg and graduated from St. Mary's High School. He entered the Air Force after high school, receiving an honorable discharge after his tour of duty. He graduated from Southwest Texas State University and started his career in banking. He and his wife, Debbie, have 4 children. Good evening, Tony.
You didn't really explain rules. I've got 2 more minutes over there because those guys didn't use them all, right? Thank you, and thank you all for coming. Coming out for an evening, I've been around long enough to know that it's hard, and there's a lot of obligations out there, and you'd rather be at home. But thank you for coming. Thank you for having enough interest in it. As Penny mentioned, and as Emily mentioned, she's in the leadership, and Tom. Well, Penny and I started the leadership program a long time ago, 1994. So without that, without us, y'all wouldn't be going to leadership. But anyway, thank you. I have been chairman of the hospital board of directors. I have been chairman of the foundation. I've been chairman of the, which most people don't know, the hospital authority. I've been chairman of the Optimist Club, Economic Development Commission. Did I mention the chamber? So I've served a number of things over the last 30 years. I love this community. We moved here to have our children and raise them here. And all 4 of them did graduate from Fredericksburg. And apparently they got a good education because they all graduated from Texas A&M. And I'm proud of that. And Charlie, right? But anyway, my wife has been a teacher in this community for over 30 years. I've been in banking. I started Arrowhead Bank 21 years ago. I was in the corporate bank before. I wish I would have known then, or what I know now, I would have changed a long time ago. We love Fredericksburg. We participate. We're members of St. Mary's Church. We've been involved with about every event. Food and Wine Fest, I've been on that committee for 30 years. We've been we started the Wild Game Dinner. I was a charter member a few years ago and started the Wild Game Dinner, and we've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the kids. So I've been involved. I want to continue. I'm certainly a lot older than some of these people, but I think I still have a little bit to do for this community. And I would like to help keep Fredericksburg the special place it is. Thank you. Please, you will vote for me.
So now we get to the fun part, the questions, and I'd be alternating the order that I call on people. So Timothy, you're going to be the first person to respond to this particular question. The most common theme of the questions that I've received tonight has been around housing, so I'm going to try to combine those a little bit. So the question is, with the investment from both public and private sector partners, a housing coordinator was recently hired to address availability and affordability of housing here in Gillespie County. If elected, what is your opinion of city involvement in housing solutions, such as usage of public land, zoning changes, creation of a public facilities corporation, utility expansion, or any other ideas that you care to offer? Timothy, you have 2 minutes for your reply.
2 minutes. It's fantastic that we did have cooperation through private and city monies to hire our housing advisor. And I pray that he will be able to provide a real solution. I do believe that by the time he offers us a solution, we'll probably still be way behind. You know, by the time you find that 7 acres, by the time the city offers, easements or breaks to make that accomplished, by the time you get it built, a couple years, maybe faster if miracles happen. I do believe in miracles. There's been plenty of private industry that has been trying to solve that problem. It's obviously not happening. And, I've heard Mr. Keeney joke, and others, this has been a problem just like a bypass for decades and decades and decades. We need real active solutions, and I'm glad that one's coming to the table. I'm glad that finally we've signed up to receive that information. Now we need not only to take that solution, but we need to magnify it and set it on its path. I have a great close friend from my high school, graduated Highland Park High School in 2000, who does this for a living. She tells me, find me 7 acres and I'll get the state to pay for it. And I'm hoping that we're going to find a similar solution as that, because our city actually shouldn't have to necessarily pony up a bunch of money to solve these solutions. It shouldn't affect our taxes, and it shouldn't come at us in a way that's going to affect your quality of life. It should improve your quality of life, and the clock's ticking. So thank you.
Charlie, you're our next taker on that question.
Yeah, the housing, as Tim said, it's kicking the can down the road, and we've been doing that for quite a while. We did hire the housing coordinator to develop through the efforts of the city and the county funding it, as well as chamber members. And so it certainly is a community problem, not just the city, the county, or business problem. So I was really happy to see all of these folks pony up to the table and contribute to that guy's 1-year contract. Hopefully, as I understand, he's preparing a draft of his report. Hopefully we'll be able to go get that and make that public and have some solutions for us. What the city has done in zoning already is we went to an R1A zoning, which is a smaller lot than the R1 zoning. As a developer, you go in, you got to put in streets, etc., and 1 acre of land may produce 3 to 4 lots. With one R1A, you may get 5 or 6 lots on that same acre, reducing the price of the lot, which I give Demi Bartel a great applause for at the beginning in her attempt to bring housing in at $260 to $280. Well, that didn't happen. It's over $300,000. The city did supply the infrastructure to the facility at a cost of around $60,000, so to help lower the cost of that. So we have that. We provided infrastructure. There's also a elimination of the tap fees if the home qualifies, and that can be a savings of around $10,000 to $15,000 to reduce the cost of that home. So the city has been involved in a small way. I will tell you, I'm not really, unless we have further information, I would not want to get into subsidized housing by the city or the county. Well, I'm not going to speak for the county, by the city. Thank you.
Tom?
We've been talking about housing for a long time, and my wife and I live on Friendship Lane, and if you stand in front of my house right now, there is the Friendship Oaks housing development. They've started pushing dirt. They bought that piece of property, oh God, I guess 8 or 10 years ago, and it's gone through various owners. Directly across the street is the Seco development, and their plan is to have 400 apartments there. At the corner of Friendship and Eagle, there's another plan for another 150 apartments to be built by the McDonald Corporation. So what we have in the community is a lack of inventory. I think everybody in here understands that everybody likes Fredericksburg. Everybody wants to come here. In many ways, we are the poster child for how do you promote a community, and the CVB has done a great job. The festivals that we have attracted a lot of people, but that doesn't mitigate the fact that people like our community. They want to come, and there's more demand for housing than there is supply of housing. So this is, at its root, this is a basic economic issue. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with Vince Michelle and his ideas on things that the city hasn't addressed in the past. And I think one thing we need to understand about the housing issue in our community, it's not just Fredericksburg.
And your time has expired. Emil. Just the time, yeah, not you.
Yeah, I was just getting the good part.
Emily, you may begin. Thank you.
All right, thanks. It's a great question, very relevant, and probably the most commonly asked question that I get. Vince Michelle is an incredibly intelligent person who has come up with some incredible solutions, and he kind of has taken the approach of yes to everything. There are so many different things that the Texas legislature in their great wisdom has allowed cities to do, such as municipal utility districts or public facility corporations or things with the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. There are a lot of different mechanisms that we can use to increase our homes. One of the things that's really important, we have to define what the problem is, and we have to define things like what is average median income, and what is attainable housing, what is affordable housing. And I don't think anyone is really excited about jumping in to have some huge, subsidized housing project, but out of the 1,500 homes, units of different kinds that are in development, less than 150 of those are rent restricted. So we need to be smart about not just building homes, but using the mechanisms that are in place so that we can have some attainable structures.
So Charlie, I just want to correct you on one thing, that the city didn't give anybody anything. The citizens of Fredericksburg gave that development $60,000. I think it's a clear distinction that's worth noting. The city intrinsically doesn't have any money. It has our money. And when we talk about this affordable, attainable housing conversation, I won't belabor the point that we've talked about it a number of times. I'm not in favor of subsidizing housing for private industry. Fundamentally, I think it's wrong. What we can do is work with the city and the county together, and let's be clear, that relationship for a past number of years has been tenuous at best. The tendency is to want to lay this problem at the city's feet, but it's really a community problem. And when we look at the options that we have outside of Fredericksburg proper, we have Harper ISD, which already has the infrastructure. We have Stonewall, which already has infrastructure. The goal of city government should be to facilitate opportunities, not do them for people. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been kicking this thing around for 30 years. I was on committees that we discussed it. We even had a gentleman come from Marble Falls talking about the Marble Falls Housing Authority, and we were looking at that. So it's been a long, long journey. And of course, as we say, economics is the big part. You got to find the land value. Then you got to find the people to build it. And it's probably only going to happen when we bring in some big developer from San Antonio or Austin or some out-of-town guy. Unfortunately, we don't have the people, the manforce, to do that here. And so I'm hopefully with the new hire that we have now, might have some openings, but it's been a long journey, and I appreciate the apartment projects coming in, but I want people to own homes, and that's the thing that we really need to concentrate on. The apartments will help some people by all means.
Thank you. Gerald, you're the last one up on this question.
I don't know the answer. When I ran in 2006, do you know what my main campaign theme was? Housing. So I know that doesn't commend me to you any more than just being a miserable flop at the housing issue, or it might suggest that there's not a lot of easy solutions to this. A lot of communities are dealing with this. What I think I know is this. What we want to try to accommodate is a certain cohort of people to purchase into the housing market. And they're going to be people who have worked in their lifestyle to create careers for themselves. They've got credit, they're able to borrow, and that sort of thing. But then, and by the way, the list of the things that she mentioned there, I'm open to look into all of those things, whether it's zoning issues or a participation with infrastructure and so forth. We are short of land, and we're also short of houses. Nobody has mentioned STRs in taking up some housing inventory. And you don't have to hate STRs, or you don't have to villainize STR operations, or you don't have to be dismissive of property rights to suggest that the number and the placement of them in residential areas does not help this problem. So I don't know the answer, but I know that it needs to be drilled down to find. The presumption is the status quo is what you have to take. Maybe. Let's see.
All right, thank you very much. The next question, Charlie, you'll be the first person to field it, and it's, again, when I picked a common theme that was submitted. In a community this size, everyone is very interconnected. How will you recognize a conflict of interest, and how will you treat that conflict of interest if it presents itself in an issue before the City Council?
That's going to probably be the easiest question I get to answer tonight. Been on council now for 5.5 years, and hopefully that I'll have the opportunity to be on there for another 2 after May. For those, we've been through a lot, and of course the last one was the short-term rental ordinance. And my way I like to highlight, we are a diverse community, absolutely, with different opinions, different ideas, different philosophies, different political beliefs. All of you all out there that I know, I can look in the face. If you've called me to come visit, I've come to visit. I've responded to your emails. You've invited me into your home to discuss. Before I make any decision, I'd like to listen to your side, their side, someone else's side, and get all the information I can possibly get. I believe in compromise. You can't have a win-win for everybody 100%. And that's the way I like to do things. I like to listen, come up with a solution, a workable solution that is a compromise. Isn't going to be acceptable by 100% of the people. I've seen this happen on the sign ordinance. I've seen it happen on the parking meters up and down. I've seen it on the historical district ordinance. You're not making everybody happy, but I will tell you, these ordinances have made Fredericksburg a far better place to live than we did 30, 40 years ago. I was adamantly opposed to the sign ordinance. Now, I think it's a great ordinance. I was opposed to the historical district. I think it's a great avenue. In fact, I was on the historical district committee that developed the historical district. compromise, listening to people's opinions, being respectful of those opinions in a respectful manner. And I've talked to a lot of you folks out there, and compromise, and I thoroughly enjoy that.
And Charlie, your time has expired.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
Tom, you're up.
I think the question revolved around how do you recognize a conflict of interest? And the city charter specifically addresses the conflict of interest. When in I think the case of a city councilman or the mayor or a member of city staff, my view is that there's very specific guidelines of what conflict of interest is. So I'll give you an example. I live on Friendship Lane. There's a large retirement community that supposedly is going to go directly around my house, 150 units. It abuts my property. So me voting on that issue at a city council meeting would be a direct conflict of interest. Across the street is an apartment complex. It does not abut my property. It's close to my property. So I don't see that as a conflict of interest. So one thing that I do is if I feel that there might be a conflict of interest, the first person I go talk to is the city attorney. And we pay him to give advice, and I follow his advice. Thank you.
Legally, things like nepotism and conflict of interest are very defined. I think we also have an incredible opportunity to restore trust in government, to James's point, by being above reproach. And if it kind of smells like, oh, that might be a little too close, people need to recuse themselves, notify superiors. It's something that is very helpful, whether it's on planning and zoning, historic review board, board of adjustment, city council, city staff. I think it's a great opportunity for us to restore trust in government that way.
So I want to clarify one thing. Mr. Musselman mentioned the McDonald Corporation on an apartment complex a few minutes ago. That's not me.
There'll be no interruption.
Just a point of clarification. So when we talk about conflicts of interest, this is a very easy conversation for me. Emily commented on it, above reproach. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck. And when there are issues that come up where a city council member is on the edge, it makes sense. We are elected to represent you as the citizens, and you shouldn't question our integrity. It's important. It's a foundational component to who we are as elected officials. Recuse. Thank you.
As you know, I've been a banker for a few years, and you didn't even get close to that. You didn't want to get there. There's certainly bankers in the past, like everything else in the world, that did have some conflict of interest, but I've always thought very strongly. I have two brothers that are architects, and last year or the year before, they were involved with the market plots. Well, I excused myself from voting on that. I don't get any money from them. I promise you I don't get money from them. But I understand it. I wouldn't expect, and certainly I think the legal counsel, if I'm not mistaken, we just had somebody at the city that did have a conflict of interest released. So I wouldn't even go there. I wouldn't touch it. I support it fully.
Yeah, I have nothing new to add to what Emily said and others have said. Conflict of interest is very well specified in the Texas Ethics Code. It's governed by state law. You don't need to check with the city attorney. If you feel that there's even the appearance of conflict of interest, you recuse yourself.
You know, in our city's mission, it uses the word integrity. I definitely always look back at that whenever I go meet in City Hall or talk to our leaders. And I work very hard to be a person of integrity. As Mr. Klein mentioned, yes, I mean, recently we had this issue with our development director. Should he have been released? I don't know. We could talk about that for a while. However, was it important that in the middle of all of the work and all of the transparency that everyone was trying to lead with, that there's some follow through and maybe a good faith gesture to our citizens from our leaders and our city staff? Maybe that was more important. When in doubt, yes, recuse yourself. And just in the last, since I ran for mayor the first time, these words weren't being uttered very much. But in the last 6 to 9 months, pretty much every meeting, and groups and individuals are bringing this up about our leaders, and it came to fruition. And then our development director stepped up and said his piece at the city council meeting last week, and then our city manager recused himself right afterwards. It does feel inappropriate or lack of integrity. And the second that appears in front of any of us as leaders sitting at these tables, we should help each other, advise each other, and step down for our own good and for the good of everyone around us. It shouldn't be a question. And unfortunately, that's why we lost our development director. So thank you.
Okay, our next question, Tom, you will be the first to respond. And it relates again to a common theme of what's coming in this evening. Fredericksburg has experienced enviable popularity as a visitor destination, which can impact quality of life for the residents. What is the role of the council in balancing these tensions and managing policy to benefit all?
I believe we all would agree that we have a great community, that one of the best things about the community is that people come here and then they go home. The Fredericksburg as a tourist destination has changed over the last 20 years. It has been it's been good for the community. Tourism has brought in a whole new level of entertainment, of shopping, of visitors to our community. It's brought in a whole nother level of finance to our community. The general fund of the city of Fredericksburg receives more money from sales tax than it does from property tax. Our tourism community has enabled the city to keep our tax rate lower than it was 10 years ago, lower than it was when both Mr. Hoover and I were mayor. So visitors, I think, are important to the community, but they are here and gone tomorrow. I believe that we as city leaders need to balance the need for visitors to come here with the needs of citizens to keep our quality of life, retain our heritage, and keep this community a great place for people to live and to work. Thank you.
This is not a typical small town in Texas. A lot of people want to come here, stay here. They come to visit, and then they want to move here. And we have something really special, and we have to be good stewards and manage that growth. Just being on planning and zoning and seeing the STR ordinance go through the very year-long, seemed like it was 5 years long, process. And the STR Alliance came out and showed how they can be good neighbors and how they can compromise on things. And I think we need to, it's very hard to force morality, legislate morality on people. Like, we need to encourage people to be good neighbors. A great example of this is what the Convention and Visitors Bureau is doing with their Love FBGTX campaign. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but it is all about being good stewards and showing, the proper way to pass a tractor on a country road instead of, honking and blowing them off the road. I think that there are ways that we can use tourist dollars to help everyone, not just tourists, not just residents. Just as an example, the bond for the sports fields that was out at Lady Bird Park a while back, that was $26 million, and that would have been Gillespie County residents having to pay that. Well, there are options at the state level. We could get the ability to raise hot taxes 2 cents on every dollar, and that money can go specifically to fund sports facilities. And that's a way we would be using hotel occupancy taxes to help pay for local things. So just being aware of what's available and being nimble so that whenever opportunities come up, we can capitalize on those and encourage people to be good neighbors.
Thank you. So to restate the question, to make sure I understood it, it was basically how do you manage, what is the government's responsibility to manage citizens and tourism combined? Citizens first. Let me say that. When I say citizens first, that also means citizens' businesses here that thrive on tourism. We have an absolutely fantastic community. It's been said a number of times tonight. We have museums that rival any other museums in the nation. We have restaurants that we could never imagine to have in a town of 12 or 15,000 people. We have things and amenities that are extraordinary. Towns of 100,000 or 200,000 people don't have the things that we have. So when it comes to city leadership, the goal of city council should be to guide, cast vision for the community, charting city staff on a path that creates a healthy environment for citizens first and their businesses. Thank you.
I think, James, you hit it on the head, that citizens first. The tourism we need, I still remember years ago, we used to talk about they would come in on Friday and they'd leave on Sunday. Well, that weekend is now stretching into the week. And I'm concerned from a point that, like anything, if you invest too much into one thing and something happens, what are you going to do then? So I'm a little concerned. I think we need to take a look at what are we doing as far as growing the tourism. We need them. There's no doubt we need them. That's why most of us have jobs. But I really think the city council needs to look into ways of improving traffic, parking, which I know they're working on. But there's some issues that come along with that, and we're getting kind of overwhelmed. So, yeah, we need them. Quality of life is important.
I think overall the city has done a pretty good job of blending the tourist problems with the quality of life of the residents over time. I mean, people still want to come here and be part of this, and we have good leadership that has protected that pretty well. But we are going to face some challenges. We're going to face some new challenges, I think. And I want to bring this to your attention, the path of the future. This is the visioning document that was put together in 2017, started out with hundreds of citizens and then became dozens of citizens working on 4 particular areas of city life: business, government, family life, and quality of life. And I want to read you the recommendations from this, which I support, on the tourism aspect. City is to partner with other organizations and stakeholder groups to further enhance our reputation as a destination, increasing efforts to establish this area as a family destination, leverage our strengths including wineries, agritourism, museums, culinary businesses, and history culture, to balance tourism with the needs of residents to ensure excellent family lifestyle and quality of life, focus on recruitment of small to medium-sized tourism businesses with fewer employment needs and low net water consumption, protect historic assets and expand cultural opportunities, review hot distribution to ensure the funds provide maximum benefit to the community, and develop infrastructure with an eye on future growth of this business. This is an excellent visioning document. It's on the website, fbgtx.org. It was, as I said, done in 2017. This report is put out in October 2018. It's there for your reading 24/7, 365. I support this, and this would be marching orders for the next council, in my opinion.
As I mentioned, I'm a teacher. Was fortunate enough to be a founder of schools in our community, and education itself is something that I would focus on a lot. Our city staff works hard to educate our citizens and our tourism. And if given more leadership and guidance in that direction, I think that they should be educating more. We need to educate our tourists, and we need to educate our citizens on how to model the neighborhoods and the community that we want to see. I find that as a mayor, serving as your mayor, I believe that currently I represent probably the majority of those who travel here for tourism. And how would you like our city to model for those tourists when they look up our city and they see either of these handsome gentlemen up here? Will they see themselves? Will they want to model positive behavior as they come in here and enjoy our town? You know, in terms of, we talk about party houses, we're concerned about alcohol consumption. I talk a lot about trash on Main Street. Clean creeks, more parks, more pedestrian throughways. The infrastructure. All of those things do add up. How we allow traffic to flow in and out of our city is very important, and those things are happening, but again, at a pace that isn't keeping up. And I believe that as the face of our community, I could hold that accountable and also help educate and model the behavior that we want our tourism industry to participate in our wonderful community, and then, yes, perhaps go home, and then, yes, one day
and your
maybe
time
move
has
here.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Being a lifelong resident and having family here, and I said this before, we do need to help with the citizens of Fredericksburg. And a few things I want to point out that the city has done, parks and recreation. The new playgrounds that we have, the Market Plots redevelopment, we have the new playground there at Mark Plots. Our park system has never been better with the equipment that they have out there. We've been real blessed with private and civic organization funding of that. One of the things that we talked about recently is the new splash pad at the Tony Canuck Town Pool, which I think the little rugrats, as I lovely call them, will have an opportunity to have that available to them as well. Walking trails, improvements at Cross Mountain. So there are things that the city is doing for the citizens of Fredericksburg, as well as the visitors. We do go to Cross Mountain quite a bit, and because Enchanted Rock is closed because of the number of people are there, you'll see a lot of visitors there as well. Visitors are a very important, vital part of our community. We are working on a transportation plan to help not only them, but the citizens of Fredericksburg. There is also a visioning plan that you can get, is some of the accomplishments that we have done. And it's been discussed, we do have a traffic impact study, again, as I mentioned, to help not only the citizens, but the visitors as well. I like to call them visitors because they come here as a whole and love Fredericksburg, and I do admire the chamber and them coming up with Love Fredericksburg. There's unruly people now and then, and sometimes that's just part of the attraction that Fredericksburg brings. So, yeah, citizens, we've done. This council and this city has not forgotten about y'all. Thank you.
You can leave that on that side.
I'm sorry, Tom.
So we'll be moving on to a new question. This one will go to you first, Emily. The city has been working with a consultant to explore parking solutions. What are your thoughts on building a parking garage and or metering existing parking?
So glad you asked. I think that we need to look at West Main. We have so much great stuff going on the east side, and I live on the east side, but as you go west, so the development is not there. And I think it would make sense to spread out our parking opportunities instead of doubling down with what we already have behind the visitor center. It's already pretty trafficky there, and I think even if we come to need some sort of trolley system or something fun, if people can't walk all the way, east to west. Parking meters, I'm interested, but I would like to see how we can allow residents to not have to pay for those, and maybe we just do it during certain days of the week or the weekend. I, for one, don't often go down to Main Street on a Saturday because there might be 4 extra cars in front of me. I'm like, oh, the traffic of this town. I know it's not as bad as Austin or Houston, but I do think that that's something to look into. I know that we had them and then we didn't have them, and then we had paper bags over them during hunting season, and I think if it's well thought out, it could be an option, but I'm all for spreading out our parking.
So my gut reaction when it comes to parking meters is the first thing that comes to my mind is July 3rd. When it is my right and my duty as a citizen of Fredericksburg to park my pickup on Main Street in preparation for the July 4th parade. So I don't want to pay for parking for that. So I have a pretty visceral reaction to that. However, I do recognize that there are opportunities to do something different, whether it's a parking garage behind CVB. I think that's probably one of the most opportunistic places to put it. Just because it will be hidden from the broader part of the community. I certainly don't think a parking garage behind the courthouse is a great idea. I don't think any of us want that image for our community. However, I certainly don't want visitors to be limited by where they go in the city because of parking. But I also want to put a caveat on there. I don't want citizens to be limited to where they go in their own community because we don't have sufficient parking. So it's something that we need to look at and look at hard. Thank you.
Well, getting meters back is, forget it. It's not going to happen. They've been buried or wherever, so that won't be happening. The garage, there is talk about it, and I'm sure Charlie and Tom would agree that possibly doing the garage back behind the Convention Visitors Bureau. So that's certainly a possibility. I still like the idea of doing it at old Fredericksburg Clinic. There's space over there. Not behind the courthouse, no, I wouldn't agree with you. But the meters won't be coming back, but certainly I think we might have some possibilities on, and they're working on some things. So won't happen overnight, but they're looking at it.
I don't have any solutions that haven't already been mentioned. I would be opposed to meters, obviously, and I'm glad to hear that that's probably not ever going to happen again. Parking garages, I mean, boy, I would sure, I know it's expensive, but going underground would sure be better than building up top ground. I just don't know the answer to that, folks. I just know that we cannot afford to change the beauty of the downtown area with parking garages. So I'm just going to plead ignorance. I don't know the answer.
Parking garages and meters, no matter how you do it, it does at least show money signs, which is fantastic. People paying for that parking garage spot, I think, adds up and puts more money in our general fund or wherever it may legally go. In the last city council meeting, or actually no, it was in the Planning and Zoning Commission, I believe, yesterday. They're talking about making sure and holding accountable our developers. I guess the Albert might have been mentioned. They've obviously done a lot of work with their parking and achieving the goals that we required of them. Could we have required more? Yes, I imagine that we could have. So as development comes in, as private industry comes in, we can definitely hold them accountable to help aid in these situations. That's for sure. And then I love hearing that, Mr. Hoover. You know, people say you can't dig around here, but you know, of course, you know, the right person with the right investment and money is happy to do some digging. So yes, we should aesthetically, we should take all the things in account, and we definitely need parking garages. And there's definitely options to make that happen, and it can be paid for. Yes, it's very expensive to build those things, but within a matter of years and time, and as it would be laid out with all the data, it would be paid for, and then we would be making money. So I would vote for something like that for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I can remember as a kid standing on the corner on Main Street and watching the old Ford truck go by, and he'd go by again. And maybe the third or fourth time he'd find that parking spot in front of the building he wanted to park in front of. Parking was not a real issue. Fast forward till about 15, 20 years ago, boy, parking is a real good problem to have in Fredericksburg. Hooray, we got parking problems here. And so this started years and years ago, and as someone mentioned, you know, it used to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and everybody would leave, and, you know, we locals and citizens could go out and enjoy our city. And that still can be done. The parking garage is a viable issue that the city has been looking at, and they're going to be possibly behind the Convention Visitor Bureau. As one already said, you probably won't very well see it. We already have a parking garage in town, and that's on Austin Street. Probably with some landscaping when they're done, it will probably be one of those kind of eyesores you may not even pay attention to anymore. So going on West Main, there was a development going out there called Seven Hills. There was an attempt there to exactly what Emily was referring, shift some of that business to the western part of town for future development. That still could be a possibility at some point in time in the future. So parking continues to be an issue. We have been working with or discussing with the county some viable parking areas there, what we call the old clinic building. Not to put a parking garage there just right this moment, but the building is in dire, terrible shape, and possibly level that building and put a ground surface parking lot there. The county and city have been working very well in the recent years in helping one another because, you know, citizens of Fredericksburg are also county residences. Thank you very much.
We already have some parking meters, and they are beneath the Fest Zimmer on market plots, and these were all the parking meters that were taken off, that were cut down. I think it was in the mid '80s is when we got rid of the meters prior. Fredericksburg has always had a parking problem. We have lots of people that would circle the block, so that they could find their parking space in front of Dooley's. So the city and the CVB, the EDC, we've been talking about parking for a long time, and one of the issues is is a parking garage behind the Visitor Information Center. Possibly that would be a multi-story, maybe have an underground story. Who knows? The other possibility is using the old clinic land. But I think the issue here is I'm not sure that there's an appetite in the community for parking meters, at least among the residents that pay taxes in this community. It might be a revenue maker, okay, but I'm not sure that that's the direction that the city should go. I think the biggest parking problem that we have right now is the effect of the visitors we have to the city and the spillover of parking into residential areas. I don't know what the solution to that problem is, but I do know that the city council, city staff is focused on parking. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do anything about it, but we're trying.
Tom, your time has expired. Get to be so mean tonight, right?
It's so unlike you.
So, James, you're going to be first up for our next question, sir. And that question is, with the traffic relief route now effectively off the table, what do you believe the city's priorities should be for traffic management and improvement?
All right. So the relief route is dead again and again and again and again. At least that's what the resolution says. Right now there's a traffic study, as Mr. Keeney mentioned a few minutes ago. That's going to be very likely coming up for a bond conversation at the end of this year. I think the totals are 50 or 60 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. But I think it's going to do a lot to relieve some of the congestion that we're seeing as citizens. But I do want to be clear about it. It's probably a short-term solution. When we talked about the relief route, there was a lot of, it's very much like the STR conversation. You have people that are absolutely for it and absolutely against it. And there seem to be very few people in between. I think the new traffic study that will be revealed soon, matter of fact, I think it's already online through Kimley Horn, but I think that's an option that that's going to be a workable solution, that's going to be more palatable to the taxpayer for Fredericksburg. Thanks.
I have to admit that probably 25 years ago, I was totally against the relief route because I was worried about the business downtowns. Well, that's changed, and we all know that. And what we're trying to get off Main Street is the trucks, the big trucks. We know. I just, sometimes on weekends, I just sit there and I can't believe those big trucks are going by those people. But there is something in the plan as far as, I think we will, there's no doubt, have to use the county to help us on this venture. So I think it's something that's been brought pretty aware now, and that we're going to try to do something. Now, it may not happen in a year or two, but we need to work on it.
No easy solution, clearly. The relief route being sent on its way because of expense and so forth. At some point, it will probably be constructed whether we want it or not, but that'll be in the future. The problem with downtown traffic is the combination, obviously, of the trucks and everything else. It's going to have to be a local solution, and the local solution is going to have to be a partial route that the city is going to be primarily the one to build. And there's going to have to be the negotiations that have been worked on and completed with landowners and so forth. There is no easy solution. And even then, the truck traffic that becomes such a problem is going to continue to go through, because that's directed by the transportation department. So we can help with some of it, but it's always going to be an issue for us, and that's part of our solution, or part of our success. I don't know the answer. I just know that we got to keep drilling down to find it. We've been looking for it for a long time, but we just removed a big piece of the partial solution with the relief route being the consideration being shut down. So I wish I could give you a really good answer to that, but I don't have it. But it's, except for this, it's going to require a lot of local participation with extending some of the roads that already exist and expanding them and trying to relieve with maybe some local traffic.
Recently, I worked with Evan Williamson, our city engineer, to help identify important sidewalks and pedestrian throughways in our city. One of those sidewalks is being installed right now on Washington Street as you head north to Austin. It's finally attaching that beautiful bridge that they built a few years back. That kind of follow through with our city monies is fantastic to see. As a part of the plan that's been presented, that section of Washington Street will become one way, and you won't be able to cross Main Street from 87. You'll be forced to turn left or right. That's proposed as a part of the plan. These kinds of ideas and concepts are worth trying for sure. We can try them, and if they don't work, we can redo the signs. As far as they've presented, the TxDOT has presented this multiple times. Our city engineers have gone through it very thoroughly, and it seems like a very terrific plan. There's dozens of improvements with lights, with pedestrian walkways, with moving back stripes, with doing all of those things. They need to have been done yesterday. You know, by the time that we approve them, by the time they get done, you know, there will be more traffic. And it will be up to our community to step up and aid our city leaders and the budget that we're using to continue to improve and adapt that. It's got to be fluid, you know. I can't just slap down a bunch of paint and check in on it again in 10 years. You know, these things need to be continually evaluated, and when there's no easy answer, it's very valuable to go ahead and give a solution and see how it sticks, which is what we've, you know, essentially done with our STR alliance or STR ordinance. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a plan. Kimberly Horn did that. It's called the Transportation Improvement Plan, and a couple of the is going to be what we call the Post Oak extension, and that at this point would have been at $7.2 million to do that. The Mulberry extension at $7.9 million. The Frederick extension, that would be at $17 million. That would move the traffic from west to east. And then, of course, then there's the intercity loop consideration, which would be the Milam Street extension going up around Live Oak and in that area, which could possibly move some truck traffic as well. Yes, TxDOT does control the major roads coming in. It is their forte to do that. We did visit with TxDOT on the relief route. When we visit with them, we left with good feelings in our mind that they indicated they do a lot. They spent over $2 million in looking at that relief route, but they say, hey, you know, we do these all the time, and sometimes they call them rack them and stack them. At some point in time, maybe TxDOT will come in and build that relief route. My 2 minutes goes by faster than these guys for some reason. Are you giving me fair shot? Anyway, yeah, so and it will be a bond. It isn't going to be anything that in my opinion, the city will just take and buy it off. So I don't think we're going to take all of these at the same time. I think there's going to be council discussion and as well as city input to say which do you feel is the most important route for the citizens of Fredericksburg. TxDOT does, what happens is you have a permitting facility that permits these trucks to come through Fredericksburg. I followed one day, and they said that Interstate 10 construction and a overpass was too low. The Aggie engineers figured it out. They lowered the road, didn't have to raise it. And some of these trucks are still coming through, which I don't know why. I've questioned the city to ask TxDOT. I believe whoever's permitting these trucks must be in a foreign country, and they have no idea that there's other routes for these trucks to take. So, yeah, it's an ongoing problem, and trucks will continue to deliver products here and come through Fredericksburg until
your time
TxDOT
has
does
expired,
it.
Charlie.
Thank you very much.
The relief route was a sword of Damocles hanging over our heads. With the removal of the relief route, it will now enable the city of Fredericksburg to, at some point, go before the voters and say, we would like to construct these roads for this amount of money. Anybody who has driven in Fredericksburg understands that the biggest choke point on Main Street now is Elk Street. And it used to be that nobody knew about Elk, but now everyone knows about Elk. So I think that with the plan that the city and Kimberly Horn have developed with restriping, with resignaling, with moving back stops, that's a help. I believe that we're going to have to pass a bond issue in some way to move some traffic from the north side of town going east. And that means that somehow there's going to have to be a connection that goes from either from Mulberry to Eagle Street or from Frederick Road going down toward in the vicinity of Ace Hardware or in the vicinity of Friendship Lane. most of the traffic, a big percent of the truck traffic that's coming through Fredericksburg is through truck traffic. And if we had a relief route, that through truck traffic would still be coming through town. So if we can get some of it gone, that would be good. But we need to look at the options that we were going to have.
Your time has expired, Tom.
I think everyone's mentioned Kimley Horn, so I will as well. But seriously, go to the website and look at the PowerPoint presentation and see which of the projects really would impact you, and then tell your city council members. There are some incredible opportunities for arteries, and they've all been mentioned. But I think even restriping, one of my pet peeves is when trucks do not pull up all the way to the curb, and so they're sticking out into the right lane, and that creates a traffic problem because then you're having to go to one lane to get around them. And also jaywalkers. I was going like this to several jaywalkers today, and they were like looking at me like crazy. So we need some education and reminding people of 101, how to cross a street. But seriously, check out the projects that are on the table, because there's some really good ideas that some do not cost a whole lot, like restriping to give us more room, more margin for those the right lanes. Others are going to be more expensive, but there's room for development. And as we look at housing and all the other issues ahead of us, it's so important to have good infrastructure. Thanks.
So this will be our final question for the evening. And so Tony, you're not going to get left out as the first chance to tackle one of these. The question for everyone, but you start with the question: Gillespie County's population has grown 7.6% in the last 10 years, but we are flanked by some of the fastest growing counties in the nation. How does this growth shape your opinions on infrastructure development, including water supply, sanitary disposal, and wastewater disposal?
First of all, water's probably our main concern. Everybody knows that. You can only poke so many holes in the ground out there. Unfortunately, some of this is not, it's part of we need to work with our county elected officials, because they don't really have a good ordinance or control of a lot of that out there. We will grow, we can't stop. We have for years, and I'm talking about, I remember that we have never wanted to get anybody to move in this community that use water. Unfortunately, I guess the grape business does, the peach business. But, well, we're talking about manufacturing and what else. So I think that, again, we need to work with the county. We're concerned about what the impact is going to be to the city. So, yeah, it's one of those many things that we have to tackle.
You've heard many times people say that many communities wish they had our problems, and this is one of them. And it takes a collective wisdom to deal with this, and that sounds like political speak, and take it as it will. But there's a lot of wisdom in this community to deal with these issues. We do have to watch for our natural resources, obviously. I think it's a time, and this is a good example of the need to reach out to our adjacent counties and find out what our common needs are and what we might can do in commonality. We've always been fragmented. We've been Gillespie County, and then there's been Blanco and Atlanta and Mesa and so forth. But we're coming at a time now when the appeal of the hill country, did anybody happen to see this article in the San Antonio Express News on March the 6th? A disappearing way of life, surging development in the hill country has its small towns worried. And this, as I say, it was in the digital version of the San Antonio Express. I urge you to look this up, because we're not just facing these issues in Fredericksburg or Gillespie County. These are hill country regional problems. And I think it's going to take a regional, at least, conversation, and maybe some trips to Austin, and looking at the issues. And I know that sounds like a lot of blah blah, but I don't know the specific answers. I know that we've just got to find them, and we've got to talk to the people who can help us find them. I do believe that it's urgent. I don't believe that it's just something that's going to be down the road. Population, water, the loss of hill country natural beauty, the landscaping, the Hill Country Alliance worked very well to keep the windmills away for a while. All of those things are going to continue to be challenges. So we just have to stay diligent and work together on a plan.
I believe our most recent largest bond just paid for our water infrastructure, which is being completed. You'll see it coming in on 290. They're building larger pipes. They're using all sorts of technologies to improve the amount of water we're storing. If I had Mr. Bailey sitting right here, he would be very proud of the amount of technology and infrastructure that surrounds our water today. Of course, water is going to be hard to say what it's going to be tomorrow, but we do know that water is going, and we're going to need to find technologies to collect water and be innovative in that way. You also mentioned sanitary disposal, and there was a third one? Yes, and our wastewater. I've toured all these facilities. Our current wastewater facility checks all the boxes and does very well. When it comes to sanitary disposal, our landfill actually, that's the thing that's running away from us. Every day we check the data on that. It's not what we want to see. And sanitary landfill, to me, is an oxymoron. But when you talk to our other leaders, they're waiting on technology to save the day. We'll just use our landfill until technology comes in and we can burn it and use it for fuels or do those kinds of things. But we can't afford to wait when it comes to our sanitary disposal. And thankfully, our water for the next few years is secure. But as I mentioned, that's only a few years. And all these are always priority number one on agendas, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to share with water, as Tim, we secured the easement now to bring in that redundant water line to Fredericksburg. If a major line would break, we'll have water for our citizens. The good news is when we've had a major water break, it's been on a Sunday where the crew was able to get out and fix it, so it was no impact on our city residents. Capital improvement for infrastructure is always money being spent on infrastructure. They did replace the water and sewer lines on Bell Street. I believe they're around 3,000 feet. Currently, on water, of course, we're on water restriction, to conserve water. But here are just some numbers. There's 386 million gallons of wastewater pumped, and 118 million gallons of that water is used on our local golf courses, and it's not being pumped into the creek that goes into the Pedernales River. So we are taking care. Our facility out there was built when the turkey plant was here to handle that capacity. And the turkey plant is no longer there, so the capacity of our system out there is adequate for a lot of future growth. Now, I will tell you there are some communities in our area, such as Dripping Spring and Buda, their infrastructure is way behind, and they've done a moratorium on building because they just can't handle it. So infrastructure is something that's important. We're replacing old lines. And what was really ironic about this is, and I'm not a hydrologist, but when you have an 8-inch line running into a 4-inch line, it doesn't make good sense. So they're replacing all of those. Water leakage is way down compared to what it had been before. So are we in great shape with water, and more people move into Fredericksburg and demand water and so forth? It's a concern, but with the additional water line coming in, according to Clinton Bailey and the staff up there, we're in pretty good shape, but it's always good to be conservative and adhere to those water restrictions that we currently have in place. So, yes, we're doing a pretty good job. Thank you.
Gillespie County is growing at a faster pace than the city of Fredericksburg is growing. There are 1,700 newly platted lots outside of Harper. There are 2 subdivisions going in on Ray Weinheimer Road. The issue of water, the city of Fredericksburg has We've got good well fields. We have the infrastructure capability to provide water to the citizens of Fredericksburg, and we can do that efficiently. I think one of the issues that we as a community are going to have to face relatively quickly, when I'm going to say probably within the next 5 years, is the need for a new wastewater treatment plant. That's something that we're going to have. We're going to have that discussion. We're going to have to decide where that's going to be. Another issue we're going to have a discussion about is do we construct another landfill, or do we move toward a regional landfill facility? These are infrastructure problems that are going to impact the tax rate, and these are discussions that every community has to address. As we grow, we as a community in Fredericksburg we're in pretty good shape. The issues that I see are we need to work with the county. We also need to have communication with, I would say, the local counties surrounding us. We all have common interests. We all have things that are the same. So we need to talk.
Your time has expired, Tom.
You always say that.
Our city runs a pretty tight ship when it comes to water. We are the number of water line breaks are very few and far between, and we have an excellent staff that's working on that. Freese Nichols came in and helped with these the technology is incredible in terms of seeing what the levels are of our water out in the county, different straws. The thing is, the county is all these developments are pulling from our water as well. So we need to make sure we have very strong relationships with our city and county. 254 counties in the state, it was designed that they have a whole lot of ability to do whatever you want. There's no building codes out in the county, so it's a different kind of way of governing, so we need to make sure that we're in lockstep on a few things there. I was a legislative director for the former House Natural Resources Chairman, and we toured the state looking at different water technologies. We were out in El Paso looking at their K. Bailey Hutchinson desal plant. We were up in Dallas, Beaumont. I mean, the topography of Texas is incredible. The hill country, water is an issue, and we need to make sure that we're conserving our natural resources in everything that we're planning.
Thank you. So a couple of things. The growth rate of Fredericksburg was tabulated at 7 and some change %, and that aligns with the data that I looked at as well. Every weekend, our community triples in size. That is the water system that we have in place today to take care of that sort of growth. When we look at the hard infrastructure with respect to redundancy in the water lines, with the additional tanks that have been built over the past couple of years, or really over the past year, we're in a pretty strong position when it comes to water infrastructure. Texas is a rule of capture state. That means I get to drill a well and I can pump it dry. So when we talk about working with the county and making sure that our development is in lockstep, using the Texas Water Board, who probably this month or next month, Clinton will report on that. The studies that I've seen from last year, 60 years is really where our water looks good. Past that, based on the current growth that we have, we've got some real strong opportunities, but it is certainly something that we need to keep in mind. I am not for moving our waste down to San Antonio when it comes to the trash. I think that's out of sight, out of mind. I would rather control those here locally. That's it. We're done.
We are done. On behalf of the Fredericksburg Chamber of Commerce, I want to thank each of you who've attended in person and those who are joining us by live stream this evening. I want to repeat my thanks to Hill Country University Center for use of the venue and to FBG Live for being our live stream technology partner tonight. And I also want to thank each and every one of you for investing your time tonight, and especially our candidates who've allowed me to shush them without being upset about it. So thank you for your patience with that. Good luck on your candidacy and with the election. And just a couple of quick reminders. The election is scheduled for Saturday, May the 7th, and early voting will begin on April 25th. Today was the last day to register to vote, so if you haven't done it, you're going to be out of luck for this round. But please remember that the only way we can hear your voice is if you go to the poll and vote. Thank you for your time tonight. Have a good one.